Welcome to Agree to Disagree, the podcast where two sisters show how you can disagree about everything but still keep that family bond and friendship.
That's right. We're Sharon and Karen, and we don't just see the world differently, we live it differently. Grab a coffee, settle in, and enjoy the conversation. Who knows, you might even find yourself changing sides.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Karen.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? What are we talking about today, sis?
Well, sis, we're talking about... You're so cheerful.
Probably more trying to be cheerful.
You're succeeding at being cheerful. I'm not succeeding.
Yay! Make it till you make it. That's my motto.
That's right. We're going to talk about the Department of Education today.
That's right. We are.
Trump just signed an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education and kind of move its functions, which is what I thought was interesting because, and I think I talked to you about, what are you seeing on the right media? What are the headlines that you're seeing about this? That's a question.
Yes, I did realize that was a question. And then I'm like, she does realize I don't watch the news or read any really news stuff. So I don't know why she's asking me this
research, didn't you?
I did do some research. First of all, Republicans have tried to dismantle the Department of Education since its inception in 1979 by Jimmy Carter.
Yes, I did
So
see
this
that.
is not new.
It's not new. Yeah, it was like a year after its inception.
Yes.
Reagan was like, we need to get rid of this.
We need to get rid of this. But just because he signed an executive order, he doesn't have the authority to do it. It has to come from Congress. And so Congress is never gonna approve this.
Well, I don't know.
Do I think they should? Absolutely 100% they should.
So why do you think, because I saw something really interesting with Pew Research, and it was that a majority of Republicans have little faith in all government departments. And this is, I think, goes to a lack of trust in government. So Republicans...
That is a normal philosophy,
yes.
I would say, and undercurrent to conservatism and Republican Party is that but remember we talked about Republicans are not about big government. They're about little government. They want the states to own more decisions.
Right. But to me, there's a difference between wanting small government and not believing in your government.
Well, I knew you were going to bring that up. So,
did you? Because I didn't know I was going to bring it up until just now.
I knew you were going to say something like that. But let me read you a quote from Thomas Jefferson, who was my favorite president.
I didn't know that. But now I know. Yay.
He was an inventor. He was just so smart. A government big enough to give you everything you want is strong enough to take everything you have. And I think that does speak to kind of where maybe a conservative mindset comes from, is that if you think about how our country came to be, we were separating from Britain that had so much control. And so the development of our government was based on the premise of not big government and not that type of monarchy where there was a king. I think that's where it kind of comes from. But historically, Republicans have been small government, let the states, because we have sovereign states, let the states have more decision making. Let them use the money. Because I think it's only going to be about an $8 billion out of the $270 billion that the Department of Education has. It's only about $8 billion that's allocated to other, which are probably salaries and discretionary and that kind of stuff. All the other funds go to Title I, go to special needs programs, and go to student aid. And those will be moved over to other departments to be managed.
Right. And, and we talked a little bit about this last week with the media issue. I was really, again, not surprised, but discouraged by the headlines that I was seeing. I looked at CNBC, it said Trump's order to dismantle education department sparks outrage. See you in court. The AP that we talked about being more balanced. Said Trump orders a plan to dismantle the education department while keeping some core functions.
Yes.
He's not just getting rid of it.
Exactly.
Elizabeth Warren, who you know is very left-wing.
Yes.
She was quoted as saying, Trump is telling America's public school kids that their futures don't matter, which is complete hyperbole. That's not what he's saying.
No, it's not.
I started looking at it, and and if you look at the mission statement and
exactly the purpose
of the Department of Education, you kind of sit back and go, "The hell are we spending $268 billion on this for?"
Thank you. That's exactly what I did too. I went and I said, what is the actual purpose?
What is the purpose?
Why was this necessary? And you know what? Okay, we've accomplished that through these programs, through Title I programs.
Right.
Do I think kids need to be fed at school? Absolutely. Do I think there needs to be student loan options? Absolutely. Pell Grants? Absolutely. Like special needs programs? Absolutely. I mean, my child took part of a special program, right, when he was young.
52% of students use federal grants. 52% of U.S. university students.
Oh, yeah.
So
absolutely.
You can't just get rid of it. I mean, you'll kill education in the country if you just get rid of it.
No, he's just moving it to another department to manage.
The thing that bothered me is, again, if you look at the wording of the executive order, did you read it?
I did not read that, no.
And actually...
that would require way too much time on that.
That's way too much research. I mean, I can only ask so much of you, right?
You can only ask so much. Like, if you get 5 minutes of research from me, you're doing good. I'm just saying. And I used to be a grant writer. I did research all the time. But, I work a full-time job. I'm tired.
I know. But I mean, even Linda McMahon, who is now the current secretary of the Department of Education.
Yes.
She said it was a history-making action, sending education back to the states where it rightly belongs.
Yes.
Now that's a false statement, though. The Department of Education does not control education. It doesn't make decisions on the education being taught
but
to
if you
kids.
read, I think if you read a little further, what she really meant by that, and what she I think later said was, it's sending the money back. It's sending the money and the savings that we will get to the states. It's sending more money to the states.
Well, let's talk about that, because where are the savings? Like you said, maybe
I said it's about $8 billion.
Maybe?
I'm saying maybe $8 billion.
And if you send that back to the states,
that's still
no.
A lot.
What I did find was the Department of Education subsidizes about $2,500.
So you're saying it's okay for us to just spend $8 billion for nothing?
No, it's not for nothing.
I mean, I'd rather give the states that money than it be tied up in a bureaucracy discretionarily, or the salaries and things like that. I mean,
you're saying money, instead of coming from the Department of Education or going to the schools directly, is just going to go to the states, or the government's just going to stop giving that money? Well, right now,
all the $262 billion, I'm sure gets down. Well, it does get down to the states because it's Title I, it's special needs programs, it's federal aid, student aid.
Some of it's loans, so it doesn't go to the states. A lot of it goes to individuals.
But some of it does, because you've got federal land grants.
$18 billion is Title I. IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities in Education, is a little over $14 billion. The national average per student expenditure is a little over $16,000. And the DOE subsidizes about $2,500 of that.
Are you going to make me do math?
No, I'm just saying, no. I would never.
Please don't.
It says that public schools receive about $2,500 per student each year, which is about $125 billion. And it's less than 14% of the total spent on public K through 12 education. The other 86% comes from property taxes and state governments. If you take, that's 14% though. If you take that away from the states have to come up with that money somehow. The price and the cost of educating.
So why are you saying that they're going to take it? Why do you think they're taking it away? Why are you saying that they're going to take that away?
Well, that's a good point. Maybe I was assuming
I don't understand why.
Well, because I assumed that the reason that they were trying to do away with the Department of Education was cost cutting, and that they wanted to save some money. And
I think that's probably a portion of it. But if you look at the last 40 years, our education of our children has only gotten worse. We have not improved our scores. We have not improved our schools. So no amount of bureaucracy and money and the Department of Education at a federal level with policies has made any difference in the last 40 years. Things are only getting worse in our education system. And you know this because you have had children educated not in the United States.
Right.
And you were educated in the United States, so you know the difference.
I don't disagree with you. I think the
we
level
have
of
a
education
problem.
is bad. I think that the reason for it, though, is not the DOE. I think that this is an easy scapegoat, and that's if you read the executive order.
I'm not saying that
it implies that he's doing this to increase the level of education in the country, and it's like
no. What I think. So when I read it, to me, it's saying we're going to do away with. No, wait. I didn't read the executive order when I was reading and doing my research for my 5 minutes.
I was about to say, you read the executive order. I'm interested to see
No, I didn't. Hang on. No, I did not read the executive order. I already stated that once, and I do back up my statement from earlier. But the way that I read some snippets from what he has said is that it hasn't done anything to improve the education over the last 40 years. I added the last 40 years in there. That's my opinion.
I agree with that.
So why do we even have it when other departments can manage these 3 programs and this money? Why do we have a bureaucracy of 4,000 employees, 4,100 employees that's not doing anything to help our education system?
Because their mandate is not to increase or improve education. Their mandate was to make sure that there was equal access to in education and
Title I programs, special needs programs, minorities.
Yes. So, and I don't disagree with what you said that can be moved, but how is that reducing government? That's just moving a program from one department to another. You still have to have the people that manage that program, the money that funds that program. What is the purpose of getting rid of DOE?
You're reducing the government size when you reduce it by an entire department. Then you absorb some of those overhead costs. Now we're talking business, and you're a business.
But it's so minor compared to the overall savings that needs to happen. I mean, I get your point. I do see your point.
Yeah, but okay.
Why have 4 different departments when you can have 2 and accomplish the same thing?
Exactly. And
there's an argument for that.
And if you think about, okay, and then you go back to our previous Doge conversation, right? So if you do this and you make these 8 billion, let's just say 8 or 10 billion cuts across every department in the United States federal government, that's significant. That does total, when you look at it totally, it is significant. You don't cut everything, but you make small cuts across every department, which is, 200 and something, or you know what I'm saying?
And I don't disagree with you. And again, I came at this at the beginning. Yeah. I mean, even coming from a left-leaning side, when I start looking into it, it's not necessarily, as long as they're saying, we're not just going to cut everything that the DOE does. And that's not what they're saying.
I was feeling the same way. Feeling the same way. I'm like, okay, let me look into this.
Yeah.
And let me see, because I disagree with him cutting those programs.
Right. And again, this goes back to the media is failing to give people the information that they need to know what the hell is going on.
It's so sensationalized.
Yes.
And it's so one-sided, regardless of what media you listen to.
Yeah. It's the left and the right. Both of them. Because they're going to pick a headline, and no media is out there giving. The AP, at least their headline was a little bit more honest.
Yes, absolutely.
I could say, okay, so they are,
that's the only place I go to read. That's the only place I go for research. I mean, to read articles out there, I just go to the AP. I just won't look at anything else.
A lot of people are getting their headlines from other places. And if you watch even a snippet on TV, and even the head of the DOE, the things that they're saying are not representative of what's really happening. And we don't have journalists that are out there saying, you know what? Let's talk about the DOE. Let's talk about what exactly they do. Where could this be done?
Exactly.
What department could this be moved to? And so my issue is, and this is not about...
And we have a president that makes snippets for ratings as well. So...
Exactly. I'm just glad that you're finally saying that.
No, I've always said that, actually. I said that in his first term.
Well, and the whole issue comes down to, I think, if you look at all this, and I think that we're kind of in agreement of, there's probably some cuts that can be done. It's not the end of the world that it moves these things to other areas.
Right.
like you said, nothing can happen without congressional approval. They can't just go away. They have already laid off 1,300 people, though. They've sent out notices to 1,300 staff.
I see that layoffs, but then when I read further, then it says they haven't actually been done, but they've given an offer of severance packages. They've given them an offer.
Yeah, they've sent out notices to 1,300, which is a little disconcerting because nothing's been moved yet. Did you see that he wants to move all of the funding for the grants and the student loans?
I saw two different things. I saw Treasury Department for one, and then another one I saw that he wanted to move it to, Title I would go to Health and Human Services. But I saw that at one point there was also student loan portfolio might be handled by the U.S. Small Business Administration.
That's what my husband told me. And I'm like,
yeah.
Then you start getting into, because right now every student has access to federal loans.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you
that one didn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense to me either. Why would you?
When I saw that it was the Department of Treasury, but then I read something later that other experts were saying actually that they should move the student loan portfolio over to the Department of Treasury. That would make more sense, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be Small Business Administration.
No,
I think it should be the Treasury Department. I just think that makes more sense to me.
I wish along with that they would do something to overhaul the way student loans are managed, because they follow you for your life. They are not easily paid back. The interest you could pay for 30 years and still be paying on interest and not principal. It's a ridiculously bad program. And I think I've told you in the UK, when I was looking at our kids possibly going there, their student loan program is incredible. If you make below a certain amount of money, you don't pay it back. You don't have to pay it back until your annual salary goes above a certain amount of money.
Idea.
So it encourages people to follow things like arts and literature and things that they want, because if they don't make enough salary, they don't have to pay it back. And as soon as they get above that amount, then they can start paying it back. And I think after a certain amount of time, it just goes away. Because if you're not making that salary within like 20 years, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So I think that's a much better way to do it.
Idea. Yeah.
It's like, I know it's going to cost money, but come on. I mean, either do that or fix the cost of education in the country.
That's right. That's right. One or the other. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. And this is the other thing. Our education is so ridiculously high and costly in the United States, but yet our professors don't make that much money.
Exactly.
So it's not going into salaries. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
professors and
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And teachers. We would not have doctors and attorneys and rocket scientists without teachers and professors.
I know.
And it irks me to no end that they don't get paid more. We will have several members of our family, if they listen to our podcast, that will really appreciate that, since we have so many teachers in our
teachers.
That was for y'all. That was for y'all.
Well, so talking about the education. So according to the National Education Association, the top 10 states in K through 12 education are Democratic states, and the bottom 10 are Republican states. You know that, right?
You actually do a hell of a lot more research than I do. I don't know if you have to actually bleep the word hell, but you do a hell of a lot more research.
Well, this was something I had known before, and I just got the proof. I mean, it's something that I had always heard
suspected
and knew that was most likely
But
true.
So I would say that doesn't surprise me. I'm going to throw this out here and I guess ask the question, since you did the research and I didn't.
Mississippi is no longer at the bottom of the list. I think we all assumed it was Mississippi at the bottom.
Usually Louisiana or Mississippi, usually. Sometimes Alabama. I would assume that of those 10 Democratic states, most of them are in the New England state area, the majority of them.
The top 3, Washington State is number 4.
Okay, so you're saying about half of the top 10 are in the New England.
More than half.
The top New England states. That makes sense to me. So the reason I asked the question or assumed that is because that's where our country started and our history started in this country. And that's where
I'm interested to see where you're going with this. Because
I know. I am too, actually, to tell you the truth. Where am I going with this?
I'm like, that was over 200 years ago. What does that got to do with today?
So I'm going to get there. I'm actually going to get there. Let me see if I can. Okay.
Do you need a minute?
I need a minute. So to me, that makes sense because That is where our country started, and that is where our government started. And as you moved further south 200 years ago, it was a more difficult terrain, a more difficult environment. And then I'm not sure where I'm going with this.
I'll keep on tracking. We'll get there.
I know, maybe not, but we were more spread out and more rural. I think that's where I was trying to go, where there were more cities and closer populations, more people density wise, and more. I don't know where I'm going.
I don't know where you're going either. I don't know what that has to do with the level of education.
Well, because going back to our original conversation about what the purpose of the Department of Education was, all right, I think I may have gotten there. In more spread out geographies like the South, you don't have access. You don't have as much access to education. You don't have as much access to resources. And so I do think that it makes sense that they have reached, because we're a very young country.
Right.
So that part of the country has higher educational scores than the South, which is more geographically spread out. So less access to resources and education and public goods and things like that. Now, if my hypothesis is correct, which it probably is not.
No, I think I see what you're saying.
You kind of see what I'm saying?
It's in more urban areas, more densely populated states.
There's more access. Yes. So to me, that kind of makes sense, which is why when you gave me those statistics, it didn't surprise me, because I always feel like when you spread out geographically and you have a lot more rural areas, you have less access.
Right.
You don't have that access that you would normally have in those more dense populations. Possibly. I'm just saying that's one variable.
It could be.
I think what you were trying to imply was Republicans are stupid and Democrats are smart.
That is not what I said. That is not what I said.
I didn't say you said that. I said maybe implying. I'm just throwing that out there.
What I was implying is that the Democratic states seem to be, because of where they fall on the rankings.
Now you're
seem to be doing a better job of managing their K through 12 education.
And what I'm saying is, I don't know if it's a better job managing or if it's just having to do with history and geography.
Fewer rural areas, which bring down the statistics. Your hypothesis would be able to be proven if you look at the rankings of schools' test scores in rural versus urban areas across the country. I would think, if I'm understanding what you're saying right, that would show if what you're saying is valid.
Yes, but I think there would be a lot more factors that would need to be looked at. It would be very hard, but it could be. But then you also look at money. Yeah, it could shed some light on it.
So
you also would need to look at money.
One of the things that's being talked about is that, again, this whole getting rid of Department of Education could be related to Project 2025.
I saw that as well. But I didn't go down that rabbit hole.
Well, I didn't go down the rabbit hole. I mean, what I had heard in the past was that the link is that Project 2025 and Republicans want to push more for giving choice to parents for private education, that they want the funding even for like the Title I program and the IDEA programs to be sent to schools with no strings attached, meaning here's the funding, do with it what you want. Either use it for disabled programs or use it for what you want. And I think that's dangerous to say, here's the money, it's no strings attached from the federal government.
Do you know, I figure you probably would. Why do you think it's dangerous? I'm just asking.
Because again, you have faith in people and I don't. Because I think you're going to have people that are going to say, I would rather use it for school vouchers to let people be able to take their kids to a private school, which I have no problem with a parent choosing to send their kid to a private school. In no way should that be government funded. In no way. Private schools should not be getting government funding, in my opinion.
I agree with you.
But this is a big Republican issue. You know this, right?
Yeah. No, I don't. Not until you just brought it up.
They want, surprise, they want school choice, and these charter schools get some government funding. And so if you give parents the choice and you give them vouchers to go and attend these private schools, these charter schools, you're taking money away from public schools. And then
I don't agree with that.
No easy answer. And again, I have no problem with dismantling the DOE. I mean, it all goes back to, again, how this administration is going about everything. It's like with a hatchet, and this chaos that is being created with all of this. I mean, if you
But you know what? Every administration creates chaos when they come into it. Every administration does.
I think that there is no
I think the media is making it more chaotic. They can't do anything until Congress. Let me also just say this. You and I have absolutely no idea and are not privy to any. We're not privy to the plans. We're not privy to the assessments. We're not privy to the conversations. Just because we have not seen a plan in writing, and just because he is a sensationalist.
I really thought you were going to say sociopath.
No, that's just what you want me to say. That is not what I was going to say. He's a sensationalistic media.
The word I
wanted to use there was you would have to bleep out. But what I'm saying is, I also feel like a lot of times you and I make assumptions that things haven't been done or aren't being done, and we don't know.
That's true.
We are not privy to that information.
I'm very bad about making assumptions. I will give you that.
I think, let's see where this goes. Let's let the hype calm down and see how things actually play out, and then maybe have a second conversation about it.
Yeah.
And the ramifications.
Yeah.
You know,
because like you said, nothing's going to happen without Congress.
Nothing's going to happen without Congress. And that's why, as much as I dislike our bipartisan politics in this country, and that we only have two parties, and that we're so divided right now, there is an innate purpose to the check and balances that come with having two parties, right? That we do far. Kind of. So, well, and again, the judicial branch is really the check and balances.
Yeah,
and
so far.
We can have that conversation.
So again, we're blaming the media for the lack of actual journalism on this one, I think.
I say it's not just the media, but it's also our president's rhetoric and his constant sensationalistic speech. But
even as a Democrat, you have to give him credit. I mean, he says he's going to do something. He goes out and he does it.
And I'll say that is one thing that we actually like about him.
I know.
He doesn't just say, I'm going to do this to get elected, and then, I'm not. He actually says, I'm going to do this to get elected, and then he actually does it.
And then
that is one thing. That was one thing in his first term. That's what actually made, because nobody likes the man. I'm sorry. Nobody likes to listen to him. Nobody likes him. But because he did in his first term come in and he actually did do what he said he was going to do, that goes a long way.
Yeah, and it's something that I've commented on before. It is an eye-opener for Democrats to look at our representatives and say, what the hell? You could have been actually getting stuff done this whole time. Yeah. You had the ability. You just were playing by the rules, and someone comes in and says, guess what? You don't have to play by the rules.
You don't have to play by the rules. Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
Where the heck
to get stuff done? Yeah, your party needs to develop some more balls. Also, was I allowed to say that? I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, definitely. They silence the right people and they give the mic to the wrong people.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Oh, look, we're agreeing again.
I know, we agree. Both still disagree on the way that it's being done, don't we? I think you like the sledgehammer approach.
I don't know. I don't necessarily agree on the sledgehammer approach. I really don't. I do agree there needs to be assessments, but I just don't think that we're privy to those assessments.
And you have faith that they're actually doing it the right way.
Yes, and you have faith that they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you have no faith that they are.
I have no faith that they are. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Till next time.
Bye, Karen.
Bye, Sharon.
That wraps up today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and review. It helps us improve and get the word out.
Reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram, or shoot us an email at agreedtodisagree@gmail.com.
Let us know what you think, what topics you'd like us to cover, or any questions you might have. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.